All right, well, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to introduce our panelists. So we have John Hewko, who is General Secretary and CEO of Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation. And then we have Sheeba Afghani, Senior Manager of Social and Behavior Change at UNICEF. So welcome both. Let's start our conversation with the positive. That's a nice change of pace sometimes. When it comes to polio, let's start with the successes. What are some of the strategies and approaches that have brought us to the brink of eradicating polio?
First of all, thank you very much for having us here for this panel. And perhaps I could just level set for everyone where we currently stand with the polio eradication effort. As you may know, back in 1985. Rotary International, the organization I have the privilege of leading, had really the audacity to say we're going to eradicate polio from the face of the earth. And, you know, Rotary is a nonprofit. We're not a multilateral institution. We're not a Ministry of Health. We were joined 3 years later by UNICEF, CDC, and WHO. And we then created the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, a fantastic partnership. More recently, we've been joined by the Gates Foundation and by Gavi. And I think the polio eradication effort probably represents the most successful public-private partnership in the area of global health since the eradication of smallpox. So we started with 350,000 cases a year worldwide in 125 countries. And I'm pleased to say that today, as we stand, there are only 2 countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan, where the wild polio virus is still circulating, and this year we've had 5 cases in Afghanistan and 2 in Pakistan. So it's been an incredibly successful effort. It's been a long effort. I know my own organization, Rotary, has put about $2.6 billion into the polio effort. That's a lot of pancake days and walkathons to raise that sort of money. But 2 lessons in terms of where we currently stand I'd like to share with you. One is the power of audacity. And there may be nonprofits out there that are saying, we want to truly make a difference, but we're just a nonprofit. What can we do? And I think Rotary and the effort we've done and the kickoff that we gave to this incredible effort to eradicate polio demonstrates that we can have power and we can truly be catalyst for something that's going to leave a legacy for as long as mankind inhabits the earth. And the second point I'd like to make is that we've had so much success in polio, but we need to get across the finish line. And in some ways, because we're so successful, in the vast majority of the world, polio is like yesterday's disease, and that's great. And so let's focus on other things. There's only 7 polio cases. And the point I'd like to make to you, to ponder on, is that whatever global health issue you are concerned about and are focused on, I would urge you to focus on polio as well. Because if we succeed, we have then demonstrated that it is possible to pull this sort of thing off, this extraordinary global effort, and not only eradicate the second disease in human history, but demonstrate that it can be done. And heaven forbid, if we were not to be successful, and we will be, it's going to be very, very difficult to rally, in my view, the world around another similar initiative. So I think all of us in the global health space have a huge interest in polio, even though in the minds of many, it's like, oh yeah, that's yesterday's disease, because it really isn't. It really is today's disease.
Thank you. Now, Sheeba, what are some of your thoughts on this success?
I'm so glad John went before me. So he's really given a really good overview. Coming from country office experience, I've worked in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and also in Horn of Africa. I think I'll really focus on the 2 recent shifts or areas that the program has invested in, and it's given us great dividends. One that I see, especially in the endemic area, South KP and eastern region of Afghanistan, is shifting capacities to the local level. And this has happened basically primarily by moving our best people to the most high-risk areas and tasking them for building local technical expertise. As you know, that we are now, the virus is concentrated in conflict areas, and these are highly volatile communities. And at the end of the day, whether you're going to access those children depends on the capacity of the local teams. The second thing, which is more on the demand side, we've really shifted the way we are doing communication. It has now become dependent on, is the program able to communicate compassion? And what do I mean by that? Communicating compassion is not about some clever messaging or a promotional campaign, etc. It's really being present in the communities, with the communities when some adverse situation takes place in these volatile communities. We can take the example of COVID, for example. We were some of the first responders were the polio teams on the ground. Similarly, if you talk about floods in Pakistan, the earthquake in Afghanistan, I can give you so many examples of that. The third area that we've also really invested in, and which relates to my area of work, is really investing in systems for building social analysis. So understanding tribal dynamics, understanding gender dynamics. One of the challenges, we'll come to challenges, and one of the strengths of the program is to have hundreds and thousands of female workers. So what are some of the challenges they are facing? How do we better listen to them? How do we invest in social investigation? How do we understand the aspirations of communities? And I don't know, many of you, I think, have heard that polio delivers beyond just 2 drops. Sometimes we are the vehicle for taking deworming and other ISD services. But we are also one of the biggest connectors and advocates and voice for these communities, whether it's with the local district administration to have better quality of services, or from even the global level, talking to national governments for shifting resources to these areas where there are multiple deprivations. So these are some of the shifts that have taken place, and we've seen the doors that were shut before have opened for the polio program. Thank you.
Well, you very well articulated some of the challenges and exactly how you're working to overcome them in areas where conflict is so rife. And then you touched on other diseases. So that's kind of, John, maybe we can follow up there, kind of broadening the conversation. What lessons do you think the polio fight can offer for efforts to tackle other global health challenges?
Well, first of all, as Sheeba alluded to, the infrastructure that we've put together for polio eradication is really a gift, a patrimony of mankind. And I think one of the, although you asked me not to talk about challenges, one of the things we need to ensure that we do once we eradicate polio is to maintain that infrastructure. Because it just doesn't exist out of nowhere. You need the funding, you need the capacity, and you need the political will and the bureaucratic infrastructure to keep that polio infrastructure in place. And it's been very successfully deployed to deal with the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, as you mentioned, with COVID, malaria, other health interventions. And so that's sort of point one. The other thing I think we've learned on, and you talked about this as well, Sheeba, is the importance of integrating the immunization effort into the general health system. And that's been one of the challenges. Many of the countries where we're certainly seeing vaccine-derived type 2 is in those places where they have weakened health systems. And so how do we create bottom-up demand for immunization? And what we found in polio was, sometimes you need to go through communities 4 or 5 or 6 times to vaccinate the children with the 2 drops. And here comes polio again. And yet these are communities that need much more than that. They need food, they need water, they need broader health interventions. And so if you can couple the polio effort with something else, like, for example, in some of the countries, our Rotarians are putting in place water systems, as in coupling that with the vaccine program to show the communities you're getting more than just polio, that you're the 6th time now that you've seen a vaccine worker. So I think one of the lessons we've learned is it's absolutely critical to integrate these vaccine efforts into other things, providing bed nets and soap, blankets, together with the vaccine, holding health camps where the mothers come in and get their children vaccinated, but they also pick up a whole slew of other health interventions. I think that's been a big lesson that we've learned from this initiative.
Sheeba, any lessons learned that you touched on this already, but any lessons for other diseases and health fights?
Really building systems. I mean, we talk about the results, but these results are there because we invested. There is an investment in building systems. But because I'm coming from social and behavior change, you shouldn't be afraid to do things differently. We've really stretched the work that we do as a communication team. We've moved beyond trust building. We've moved beyond just refusal conversion to even resolving boycotts, which are for totally different reasons, beyond the mandate of SBC, but beyond the mandate of the program as well. You may get a boycott because you don't have mobile network. You can get a boycott, unemployment, peace, so many things. So we've really invested in innovation and those systems to be taken over by other programs as well, because these are the same places that are high risk for so many other diseases. They are facing multiple deprivations. So other programs can really learn from our planning and our ability to implement large scale immunization and micro plans in very challenging circumstances.
So to wrap up, what gives you hope moving forward?
This gives me hope sitting next to our partners. And John did say Rotary was there much before any of us were there, and they have continued to. In addition to Rotary, BMGF, CDC, all partners have stayed together despite all the hiccups or bumps in the road. And I'm also talking about community partnerships. Polio program today has huge social capital. We keep talking about the challenges, but look at the 99% of the population that is accepting vaccination. You're knocking on a door in some of the most remote communities and they're letting you in. How many of us will do that? So it's a huge reason for hope and the partnership for me.
John, a few final words. Hope for you.
I'm also extremely hopeful. We're just again down to two countries, and but there's the budget to get us through to 2026 and the certification of the world as polio free of 4.8 billion. We're still about 1.5 billion short. But I'm very optimistic that working together with your support, because as I said again, all of us in the global health space, regardless of your interest and your passion and your focus, have an interest in making sure that we get across the finish line with polio. So I'm very optimistic because past performance generally is a good indicator of future performance. We've done great so far, and we will, with your support, with the support of our great partners, we will get across the finish line.
What's a very hopeful story. Thank you. Join me in thanking our panel.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, John.